Click on the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell notifications, and we start. Carly Gregg grew up in what appeared to be a typical suburban household in Brandon, Mississippi. At 14 years old, she lived with her mother, Ashley Smiley, and her stepfather, Heath Smiley. From the outside, they seemed like an average family navigating the complexities of life together. Ashley Smiley, 40, was a dedicated math teacher at Northwest Rankin High School. Her colleagues described her as compassionate and attentive, traits that extended to her relationship with Carly. Despite their close bond, there were underlying tensions that would later play a critical role in the events leading to tragedy. Carly, an only child, was known to be intelligent and independent, but her teenage years were marked by increasing rebellion. She began experimenting with marijuana, hanging out with a different crowd, and showing defiance toward authority figures, including her mother and stepfather. The family dynamic became more strained as Carly's behavior escalated. Ashley, concerned about her daughter's choices, sought to establish boundaries while also offering support. Heath, a steady presence in the household, tried to mediate, but often found himself caught in the crossfire. The Smiley household was like many others, juggling work, school, and the everyday challenges of family life. Yet beneath the surface, tensions simmered. Carly's relationship with Ashley, once marked by warmth and trust, became increasingly contentious. Ashley's dedication as a teacher extended to her parenting style. She was determined to guide Carly back onto a positive path. She kept a close eye on her daughter, even checking Carly's social media and monitoring her phone. While Ashley's intentions were rooted in love and concern, Carly saw these actions as intrusive and controlling. The family's troubles were compounded by Carly's emotional struggles. Friends and family noticed a change in her demeanor, describing her as withdrawn and sometimes sullen. These mood swings were dismissed by some as typical teenage behavior, but in hindsight, they were warning signs of deeper issues. As Ashley and Carly's relationship grew more volatile, the cracks in their family dynamic widened. Neither could have anticipated how these tensions would culminate in one of the most shocking crimes their community had ever witnessed. This is the backdrop against which the story of Carly Gregg unfolds, a story that begins with the struggles of a mother and daughter and ends in an act of violence that would devastate their family and community. In the weeks leading up to March 19, 2024, the tension between Carly Gregg and her mother, Ashley Smiley, reached a boiling point. Ashley had become increasingly alarmed by Carly's erratic behavior. Reports from Carly's friends painted a troubling picture of a teenager who was not only experimenting with drugs, but also using burner phones to conceal her activities. One of Carly's closest friends, worried about her downward spiral, decided to intervene. The friend confided in Ashley about Carly's marijuana use and the secret devices she used to communicate with her social circle. Alarmed, Ashley decided to take matters into her own hands, hoping to set her daughter on the right path before it was too late. Searching Carly's room, Ashley discovered vape pens hidden among her belongings. This discovery, while minor compared to the broader issues at hand, became a significant flashpoint in their relationship. Ashley confronted Carly about the items, demanding answers and trying to address her behavior. Carly, however, viewed the intrusion as yet another betrayal of trust. The growing mistrust between mother and daughter was not lost on Carly's stepfather, Heath Smiley. He often served as a mediator during their arguments, but even he began to feel the weight of the family's unraveling dynamics. Heath later recalled that Carly's demeanor had shifted in recent months. She was more withdrawn, more secretive, and less receptive to guidance from her parents. While Ashley grappled with how to help Carly, Carly herself began to isolate further. She turned to her friends for validation, frequently expressing frustration about her mother's strict rules. In hindsight, those closest to Carly noted a dark undercurrent to her conversations, an increasing sense of anger and hopelessness that seemed to consume her. Ashley, unaware of the full extent of Carly's turmoil, remained steadfast in her efforts to regain control of the situation. She continued to monitor Carly's activities, convinced that her firm approach would eventually bring about change. What Ashley couldn't foresee was that her actions, though well-intentioned, would set off a chain of events that would end in tragedy. The tension in the Smiley household was palpable. With each passing day, the distance between mother and daughter grew, and the possibility of reconciliation seemed further out of reach. This volatile environment set the stage for an explosive confrontation that would change their lives forever. March 19, 2024, began like any other weekday in the Smiley household. Carly Gregg, 14, and her mother, Ashley Smiley, left for Northwest Rankin High School, where Ashley worked as a math teacher, and Carly attended classes. Neither could have anticipated the devastating events that would unfold before the day was over. Ashley, already burdened with concerns about Carly's behavior, spent the day teaching while Carly went through her school routine. Friends later recalled that Carly seemed quiet, almost detached, as though something weighed heavily on her mind. When the school day ended, Carly and Ashley returned home. At some point during the evening, Ashley decided to confront Carly about her continued disobedience and troubling behavior. The argument quickly escalated, becoming one of their most heated exchanges yet. Ashley demanded accountability from Carly, while Carly felt increasingly cornered and misunderstood. Fueled by anger and desperation, Carly stormed away from the confrontation. According to subsequent investigations, she retrieved a .357 Magnum handgun that had been kept in the home. The weapon, which should have been securely stored, became the means by which Carly's frustrations turned into irreversible actions. Carly entered her mother's bedroom, where Ashley had gone after the argument. In what prosecutors later described as a deliberate and calculated act, Carly aimed the gun and fired multiple times at her mother. The fatal shot struck Ashley in the head and chest, killing her instantly. The aftermath was chilling. Surveillance footage from the home showed Carly pacing the house in the moments following the shooting. She then used Ashley's phone to send a text message to her stepfather, Heath Smiley, asking him to return home quickly. When Heath arrived at the house later that evening, Carly was waiting. As he walked inside, Carly confronted him with the same handgun. Heath, realizing the danger, tried to de-escalate the situation, but Carly fired at him, striking his shoulder. Despite his injury, Heath managed to wrestle the weapon away from her during a struggle. Heath's quick thinking saved his life, but the damage was already done. Ashley was gone, and Carly's actions had shattered their family forever. Carly fled the scene on foot, leaving behind a house filled with evidence of her rage and desperation. After fleeing the house on foot, Carly Gregg disappeared into the quiet Brandon neighborhood, leaving chaos in her wake. The Smiley home was now a crime scene. Ashley Smiley lay lifeless in her bedroom, and Heath Smiley, though injured, managed to contact emergency services after subduing Carly and securing the firearm.
Your daughter tried to shoot you? She was shooting at me. Where is she at? She ran away. How old is she? 14. 14?
Authorities were alerted immediately. Within minutes, Brandon police arrived at the scene. Heath, despite his gunshot wound, provided them with a clear account of what had happened. Carly had shot her mother and then attempted to kill him. As paramedics treated Heath's shoulder injury, a manhunt for Carly began. Carly hadn't gone far. Officers found her walking near the house, disoriented and covered in blood. She was taken into custody without resistance. At the time of her arrest, Carly reportedly showed little emotion, a detail that would later be scrutinized in court. As investigators began piecing together the timeline of events, they uncovered chilling details. The surveillance cameras inside the Smiley home captured Carly's movements throughout the evening. The footage showed her retrieving the gun, pacing after the shooting, and waiting for Heath's arrival. This evidence painted a picture of premeditation, undermining any claim that her actions were impulsive or the result of a sudden outburst. The small community of Brandon was in shock. News of the incident spread quickly, leaving neighbors and classmates struggling to comprehend how a seemingly ordinary teenager could commit such an unthinkable act. Friends and family who knew Carly described her as intelligent and kind, but acknowledged her recent behavioral changes. Meanwhile, the police conducted a thorough search of the home. They found the handgun used in both shootings, along with other evidence that suggested Carly had planned the attacks. Forensic analysis confirmed that Carly had fired the fatal shots, and ballistic evidence tied the weapon to both her mother's death and Heath's injury. In the days following the tragedy, Carly was held in juvenile detention as prosecutors prepared to charge her as an adult. The case, which initially seemed straightforward, soon became more complex. Questions about Carly's mental state, her relationship with her mother, and her access to the firearm began to emerge, hinting at a deeper story behind her actions. The community's grief was compounded by the disturbing details that surfaced during the investigation. As the legal proceedings loomed, many were left asking the same question. What could drive a 14-year-old girl to such extreme violence against her own family? Carly Gregg's arrest on the evening of March 19, 2024, marked the beginning of an intense investigation that would uncover the chilling details of her crimes. After being taken into custody near her home, Carly was transported to the Rankin County Sheriff's Department for questioning. Detectives described her as calm but detached, offering little explanation for her actions. The crime scene inside the Smiley home was meticulously examined. Forensic teams collected evidence, including the .357 Magnum handgun Carly had used. The weapon, a legally owned firearm kept by the family, became a central piece of evidence in the case. Investigators found Carly's fingerprints on the gun and recovered ballistic evidence linking it to both the fatal shooting of Ashley Smiley and the wounding of Heath Smiley. Surveillance footage from the family's home security system provided a clear timeline of events. The video captured Carly retrieving the gun from a storage area, walking through the house, and entering Ashley's bedroom. After the shooting, Carly was seen pacing and using her mother's phone to lure Heath back to the house under false pretenses. During her interrogation, Carly provided limited responses to investigators' questions. She did not deny her involvement, but offered no insight into her motives. The lack of remorse or emotional reaction unnerved law enforcement officials, who later described her demeanor as eerily detached. Prosecutors wasted no time in preparing their case against Carly. They charged her with first-degree murder for the death of her mother, attempted murder for the attack on her stepfather, and tampering with evidence. The decision to charge Carly as an adult sparked debate within the community, with some arguing for leniency due to her age and others calling for the harshest punishment allowed by law. As details of Carly's life began to emerge, investigators uncovered troubling signs of mental health struggles. Friends and classmates described Carly as withdrawn and prone to sudden mood swings in the months leading up to the crime. Medical records revealed that she had been diagnosed with depression and had recently changed medications, a factor that would later play a role in her defense. The investigation also raised questions about Carly's access to the firearm. While it was legally owned by the family, critics questioned why the weapon was not securely stored, especially given the tensions within the household. The case attracted significant media attention, with headlines focusing on the shocking nature of the crime and Carly's young age. As the investigation progressed, the community braced itself for the legal battle ahead, one that would expose the fractures within a seemingly normal family and challenge the justice system's ability to handle such a complex case. Carly Gregg's trial began in the summer of 2024, drawing national attention due to her age and the brutal nature of her crimes. The courtroom was packed as prosecutors and defense attorneys presented two very different narratives about the events leading to March 19, 2024. The prosecution painted Carly as a cold and calculating killer. Using surveillance footage, text messages, and forensic evidence, they argued that the shootings were premeditated. Prosecutors emphasized how Carly had lured her stepfather home after killing her mother, framing it as a deliberate and malicious act. They dismissed claims that her age or mental state should mitigate the severity of her actions, arguing instead that Carly's choices were clear and intentional. Key witnesses included law enforcement officers, forensic experts, and Heath Smiley, who provided chilling testimony about his stepdaughter's ambush. Heath described the moment Carly shot him, the struggle that ensued, and how he managed to disarm her. His account of Carly's cold demeanor left a profound impact on the jury. The defense, however, focused on Carly's mental health struggles. They called psychiatrists and psychologists who testified about her history of depression, mood swings, and auditory hallucinations. One expert explained that Carly's recent change in medication might have exacerbated her mental instability, potentially contributing to her violent outburst. Friends and teachers also took the stand, describing Carly's significant behavioral changes in the months before the crime. Many described her as a kind and bright young woman who had become increasingly withdrawn, defiant, and unpredictable. The defense argued that Carly's actions were not premeditated, but rather the result of an unbalanced mind pushed to its breaking point. The prosecution countered these arguments by highlighting Carly's actions before and after the shootings. They pointed to the calculated manner in which she retrieved the gun, lured Heath home, and attempted to cover her tracks. Prosecutors asserted that while Carly's mental health struggles were tragic, they did not excuse her deliberate actions. The trial's emotional intensity was heightened by the presence of Ashley Smiley's friends and colleagues, many of whom sat in the gallery wearing ribbons in her memory. Their silent support for the prosecution underscored the community's grief and desire for justice. As the trial drew to a close, both sides delivered compelling closing arguments. The jury was tasked with determining whether Carly's actions were the result of premeditation or a moment of mental crisis. Their verdict would hinge on whether they believed Carly was fully aware of the consequences of her actions on that fateful day. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury in Carly Gregg's trial returned with a verdict in September 2024. The courtroom was silent as the foreperson rose to deliver the decision. Carly, seated between her defense attorneys, showed little visible emotion as the charges were read aloud. The jury found Carly Gregg guilty on all counts: first-degree murder for the death of her mother, Ashley Smiley, attempted murder for the attack on her stepfather, Heath Smiley, and tampering with evidence. The conviction carried the possibility of life in prison without parole, a sentence that underscored the severity of the crimes despite Carly's young age. The announcement of the verdict brought visible relief to Heath, who sat quietly in the gallery. For him and other supporters of Ashley, the jury's decision marked a step toward justice for the life that was so brutally taken. The tragedy had shattered the Smiley family and reverberated throughout the tight-knit community of Brandon, Mississippi. As the courtroom emptied for the final time, questions lingered about what had led to such a devastating outcome and how similar tragedies could be prevented in the future. For Heath Smiley, the pain was twofold. He had lost his wife, Ashley, to a horrific act of violence, and his stepdaughter, Carly, to a lifetime in prison. Despite his testimony against her, Heath later expressed a complex mix of emotions, ranging from anger to sorrow. In a statement to local media, he described Carly as a troubled young girl who needed help but made choices that can never be undone. If you have finished watching, you are a real fan of true crime. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell notifications, and put the like. See you in the next video.